So, good evening everybody. Nice to see you again. This time I didn't hear the lady say anything about recording has started or something. Did you hear that message? I wonder if my speakers are on, or if they're off, if that's why I didn't hear it. Anyway, what I had in mind for this satsang, I made these brief notes that you can see in the chat window, which is the material for this satsang, with the title Basics of Dzogchen, Great Perfection, and Non-Meditation. It's been a number of years since I've really taught these things. Back in 2016, 17, 18, this was really the focus of my teaching. And it had to do with, at the time, our Sangha members were opening bhumis, or had arrived to opening first Mahasiddha bhumi, 11th bhumi, which makes practice of non-meditation effortless, quite easy. Not completely effortless, I can't say that, but it makes it very easy. But I will get to this, bhumis and non-meditation or Dzogchen meditation. But I thought that it would be good to have a reminder session about these things, because non-meditation or Dzogchen meditation, the correct term for Dzogchen meditation is Ati Yoga. A-T-I, Ati Yoga. And Ati means primordial. And maybe you could translate it as original, something like that. Original, fundamental, primordial yoga. So to be exact, Dzogchen, which is Mahasandhi in Sanskrit, great perfection in English, it's like a collection of teachings. But Ati Yoga is the meditative practice of Dzogchen. And non-meditation, the term, which is abhavana. So it's actually non-meditation or abhavana. It's a term from Mahamudra tradition. But I think that the term non-meditation is very good negation of different types of meditation, intention or concentration practices, attention practices, trances, negation of jhanas, meditative absorptions. But I will explain all these things in detail. But the term, Sanskrit term for non-meditation is abhavana. Bhava or bhavana means cultivation of some kind of state. And when you put the letter A, in front of that word, it's a negation. So it's negating meditative states. And that's where the term non-meditation comes from. I love the term. And if you have read, if you have heard about Rainbow Body Yoga, there in the manual it speaks about non-meditation. So maybe you've heard it before. So I will get right down to it, giving definitions about non-meditation, and also clarifying the meaning, which necessarily makes other definitions and misunderstandings fall off. So I've written in my notes a definition of intention attention and awareness. So what is intention? Intention means that you're applying concentration to one object of focus. Can be a physical, some object on a table. Sometimes, I have never done this, but sometimes a small rock is used, placing a small rock on a table and just staring at it, being focused on it, being concentrated on it. This object of concentration can be also internal, inside the body. And what I have done a lot in my Zen days is following the breath in the gut. So this is very common. You might have tried it in different Buddhist traditions. So there you place your concentration, for example, 2 centimeters below the navel, there, and just focus on that point and remain focused, remain concentrated on a single point. So this is the first of the 3 categories, being focused, being concentrated on a single object. Second one is, the first one in Mahamudra meditation manuals is known as shamatha with support. It's a category of practices. Shamatha, or concentration, calm, abiding with support. Okay? And the second one is attention. So I'm making a distinction between intention, one-pointed focus, and attention. What is attention? Can you hear me? Yeah, okay. There was some error message. So attention means that you're not focused on some single object, but you're focused on space. 3-dimensional space around you. And it can be immediately next to your body, or it can be vast 3-dimensional space. But nevertheless, you're focused on the space surrounding you. And if you, at this moment, the room you're sitting in, you feel into the space of the room. You're concentrated, you're focused on sensing the space of the room. So you're not focused on a single object, but you're focused on space around you. This is what I call attention, being attentive of space. And of course, as an example, I'm using this physical room, physical space, but most important is, of course, sensing, being attentive of the inner space. So if you close your eyes and you feel into the space around you, 360 degrees around your body, this is still application of concentration or focus, but it's slightly different than being concentrated on a single point, which is why I call it attention. But this is still 3-dimensional space. So when we focus on a single object, or if we focus on 3-dimensional space, as the term suggests, it's 3D. It's 3-dimensional, the experience. What does that mean? It means that, our physical bodies are 3-dimensional, obviously. Our aura is 3-dimensional too. It has width, depth, and height. Right? And one very common misunderstanding about this mode that I call attention, and which in Mahamudra manuals it's called shamatha without support. A common misunderstanding is that being attentive of inner space would be the same as plain awareness or basic awareness. But this is misunderstanding, and a quite gross misunderstanding. Most of you anyway who join this session, you have mileage with meditation practices, and some of you have journeyed through all the bhumis or have Mahasiddha bhumis open, so your experience of basic awareness is already stable, solid. But here, if you are attentive of the space around you 360 degrees, you can immediately notice that there is effort needed to sustain that attentiveness. Which is other way of saying that in order to be attentive or aware of this 360 space, you have to keep doing it. There is doing involved. And that's what I mean by effort. It cannot be effortless, except at a very mature stage. But maybe I'll come to it later. Okay, so intention, three-dimensional, where the concentration process is on one object, creates a three-dimensional space. Second one is being aware of internal space, being attentive of it, also three-dimensional. But this workshop is about Ati Yoga, Dzogchen meditation, or synonymously called non-meditation. And this puts a specific criteria and has a specific criteria for meditation. So like I briefly explained, non-meditation, abhavana. Non-meditation is not concentration practice. It is not shamatha meditation of any type. It is not shamatha with support. It is not shamatha without support. So it's a completely different laws, completely different rules, if you will. So we enter the zero-dimensional experience, which is where basic awareness or knowing awareness, which is spoken a lot in basic Dzogchen teachings, comes into the picture. Zero-dimensional. And here one necessarily needs a teacher who knows what that zero-dimensional basic awareness, knowing awareness, Rigpa, what it actually is experientially. And the reason why I say that is because of samsara, actually. Because the mind is so stuck in the wheel that it follows. So, because I briefly said that our auras are three-dimensional. The aura is our mind, thinking mind, feeling mind, energetic mind, right? So it has difficulty to grasp or understand concepts or ideas that are outside of its three-dimensionality. And this is the difficulty with that creates the common mistake, common misunderstanding that being attentive of the 3D space would be same as awareness or Rigpa, which it is not. I have thought about making this video series about this specific mistake, which is very common in the world of Dharma, in the world of meditation, because I have seen so many lineage teachers, actually even from Dzogchen tradition, also from a couple of Zen teachers, one Mahamudra teacher, confusing that, having the misunderstanding and having incorrect experience that this 3D space, 360-degree space, would be same as zero-dimensional space, but it is not. And one thing in reference to Amrita Mandala, one gift, immense gift that we have in our method is the practices that help us to open bhumi plates quickly, and specifically to open the first Mahasiddha bhumi, 11th bhumi, very quickly in one's practice, because that brings in, gives you the experience, the correct, effortless recognition of this Rigpa, basic awareness, knowing awareness. So in Amrita Mandala we have that immense gift. You know, if we speak of bhumis a little bit, I don't know if you have done bhumi analysis, but especially our acharyas should do it, if not on daily basis, at least every couple of days, study their own bhumi systems and study the bhumi situation of our Sangha members, as well as studying the bhumi energetics of other people, other practitioners, teachers, masters, and so on. And the reason why I say that is because, well, I have done it very extensively. I've done thousands of bhumi analysis. So many that I have been completely fed up with doing bhumi analysis, which is a personal trait of mine. I always overdo things. But the reason for me saying that is because it is extremely rare. Not rare, not very rare, but extremely rare to find practitioners or teachers from any lineage out there who have 11 bhumis open or 13 bhumis open. Very, very, very rare, or extremely rare. So please use our bhumi teachings, use the 13 bhumi model, and find out for yourself why I say such things. So culturally, I think that it's an obvious problem. It's a direct cause and effect. This confusion of, or mistake of confusing attention with awareness, because if you don't have the full stack of bhumi plates open, if you haven't had those at least 11 major awakening experiences, then it's simply the case that this Rigpa, this basic awareness, remains a mystery to you. It's simply like that. So to really have like a how to say that the experience becomes very that you really have confidence from your living moment to moment life in this basic awareness. very unique to Amrita Mandala because it is so, extremely rare in the world today. Yeah. And of course, the practices in Amrita Mandala that enable to get there, to open the bhumis, to have these major awakening experiences are refuge, bodhicitta, deity yoga, and guru yoga. What I've said so far are practiced by all tantrics. Refuge and bodhicitta even by non-tantrics. But there is one very important factor in these practices, which is, there is in Tantra, there is external, internal, and secret. External means doing some techniques, performing some practices, doing, generating. Internal means stopping doing and feeling the energetics, blessings, charge, spiritual charge, energetic charge that was generated. And the third secret is revealing the self-secret, discovering our own Buddha nature, wakeful nature that is already pure and perfect. So external, internal secret. It is that internal aspect that is very, very widely missing from tantric communities and teachings. People do lots of performance of practices, doing, generating visualizations, mantras, prostrations, breathing practices, mudras, asanas, doing. But they don't have the crucial, essential teaching that they should feel. That they, at some point, they should stop all that generating, all that doing, and just be open and receptive, and receive the blessings, and feel the charge. It is a very basic, rudimentary mistake and a problem in the world. I have been teaching 16 years now, professionally, soon 16 years, and during this time I have received so many messages from people who have practiced forms of Tibetan Buddhism, Tibetan Vajrayana, and other forms of Tantra, where they weren't taught to just feel and be receptive. And when they then saw a video of mine or joined a retreat where I emphasize this feeling of energies, suddenly their mind gets blown because it was the missing link through all those years and sometimes decades. So this is very, very sad that such basic teaching, the whole understanding of the internal aspect, it's absent. It's really sad, it's heartbreaking that people are stuck with this performance of practices, performing practices. So external, internal, and secret. So what was I talking about before that? Knowing awareness, Rigpa, common mistake. Well, that's actually an important connection to make, a necessary instruction for practitioners of Ati Yoga, non-meditation. When we discuss these three aspects, external, doing, internal, taking in, being receptive, and the third, secret. Secret is Hatha yoga, no meditation. Recognizing oneself, recognizing one's own innate purity, innate wakefulness. See how beautiful that is. How beautiful is that continuum of the three aspects? Why? Why do I say that? It's because when we are doing practices external, we are still on the surface, kind of dancing on the surface or exercising on the surface level. Although if we understand tantric practices correctly, if we understand the nature of mantra or visualization, such as visualizing Guru Rinpoche who is behind me, if we understand it correctly, it already covers external, internal and secret. But we cannot have that understanding as a beginners. So actually, when we say Vajrasattva mantra, Guru Rinpoche mantra, Yeshe Chogyal mantra, Avalokiteshvara Mani mantra, it already has these three aspects: external, internal and secret. But this cannot be understood and really grasped until at a very, very mature stage. Becomes very obvious when around the perfection of 7th bhumi, 8th bhumi, 9th bhumi, then you see it perfectly that, oh, right. There's another confusion very widely spread is that that practices are against Dzogchen, or that any type of presentation of stages is against Dzogchen. It's so silly. It's like children who are learning mathematics in first grade or second grade at school start teaching professors in university. It's a bit silly misunderstanding, but a very common one among grown-ups. That's a tragic side of it. And the reason why it's silly is because even though we have pure nature, complete nature, Buddha nature, nature exactly the same as Guru Rinpoche's, Shakyamuni Buddhas, and so on. It is completely different thing to have it as a potential than to have it completely 100% as a lived experience. So a glimpse is not enough to get that 100% lived experience. Even 1,000 glimpses are not enough. Actually, even having all bhumis perfected is not enough. Open and perfected. To really be 100%, you need to have both of the subtle bodies covered. In Amrita Mandala we speak of Nadi body, commonly known as causal body, and then meridian body, commonly known as astral body. You have to have 100% of both of those to be like Padmasambhava or Mahasiddhas like that. Okay, so let's see where we are. So next thing, I already mentioned Nadi system and causal body. In traditional Dzogchen, which started in the ancient land of Odhyana, we were just speaking of Odhyana with Rani yesterday. She's reading life story of Padmasambhava. And Odhyana is this pure landish area, ancient land in Afghanistan or Pakistan, somewhere around there, nobody knows anymore. But somewhere around there, that would be actually interesting to go over and see, how the energies are there these days. Because if there was like this pure landish area back there 1,000 years ago, roughly when Padmasambhava was in physical body, there are energetic currents still there that could be easily noticed. Anyway, so in traditional Dzogchen, one practice it has two main stages and two main modalities of practice, two main modalities of Ati Yoga, two main and different modalities of non-meditation. So the first one of those is Trekcho. Trekcho or Trekche is a Tibetan word which means samapatti in Sanskrit. Samapatti. Samapatti is a very common word in Buddhist meditation. And I don't actually know or remember the exact translation of it, but even if you read Theravada or Hinayana meditation manuals, they speak of Nirodha Samapatti. Nirodha is the term for cessation. You might have heard that in Amrita Mandala teachings. But what is cessation? That's a good question. So cessation means that, we have this selfing happening in our mind, in thought, in emotion, in subtle energy. I'll say that again. Selfing happens in the mind, in thoughts, emotions, and subtle energy. By subtle energy I mean just some vague energy that hasn't formed into thoughts or emotions yet. Like clouds. Clouds are just like a vague mass of vapor, but it hasn't formed into water drops yet. Well, tiny ones, but it doesn't fall down as raindrops. So that's what I mean, making a simple categorization of thoughts and emotions, like raindrops, and then this vague cloud-like, steam-like energy, selfing. So what cessation means, what Trekcha means, what Samapatti means, is actually, this is a common universal principle in Buddhist meditation, the principle of clear seeing, vipassana. Vipassana is Sanskrit, Laktong is Tibetan. And this principle is often spoken in Dzogchen teachings as Kadak Trekche. Kadak. Kadak means, if I remember correctly, it's been many years since I've read Dzogchen books, so I believe it means emptiness, shunyata. So the whole point of the first modality of Dzogchen meditation is to discover that the mind, with all its thoughts emotions and subtle energies rests in cessation, rests ceased. A very basic misunderstanding of cessation, maybe like 98% of commentators who comment on Maharishi Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, they misunderstand, when in the second sutra he speaks of Nirodha, Yogaha Chitta Vritti Nirodha. It speaks of Nirodha, it speaks of cessation. And most of the commentators, they stumble right in the beginning, and they say that cessation would mean silence of the mind, being without thoughts. And it's such a rookie mistake. With all respect, it's doesn't mean silence at all. It is not shamatha Patanjali is talking about. Patanjali was a Mahasiddha. But Patanjali was Tirumular's Dharma brother and a disciple of Nandi, Mahasiddha called Nandi. So, yeah, Patanjali is not talking about silence of the mind or leading a quietative lifestyle, not at all. So, what cessation means is that whether we have thoughts, emotions, and subtle energy or not, mind rests ceased, selfing ceased. What does that mean? How can you have thoughts and emotions and not have a self or sense of me, I involved? Well, that's the whole point of any Buddhist meditation, any Buddhist tradition, any tradition of Buddha Dharma. That's the whole point. So you can have thoughts and emotions. You can have thoughts associations as much as your mind associates. You can have artistic ideas and have creativity, be very creative, and yet there is no self, no I or me in any of that. So this is actually, I mentioned Mahamudra and Mahamudra manuals. In Mahamudra there are 4 main stages of in the path, and the third one of those is one taste or same taste. And it is the third one is one taste or same taste, and the fourth one is non-meditation. But what one taste means, it means the same taste, same feel, sameness of experience of both samsara and nirvana. Wait, what? What did you just say? It means that this can very easily be explained. In the beginning we have a problem. In the beginning of the path we have a problem that leads us to the path and practice. And that problem is that we have all that selfing in most of the thoughts, in most of the emotional reactions, in most of that subtle energy. There is self, me, I, the self-entity in it. It might be a very gross form, subject self form, might be object self form, which is a bit subtler, or it can be very subtle, like in subtle energy. So in the beginning we have a problem. This problem, damn it, samsara, it keeps going from one self-centered, one self-based thoughts and emotion to the next, to the next, to the next, and then there's a break. And the next, and the next, and the next, and there's a break. And it just keeps going like that. So there is this problem because of this entityness, self-based being, self-based living, and it makes us confused and lost. This is the suffering that Shakyamuni Buddha in his Four Noble Truths is talking about. It's a suffering created by being born out of this sense of self, me, entity. So, one taste, same taste. So in the beginning you have a problem. But as you advance in emptiness meditation, in Trekcho, Kadak Trekcho, in Vipassana, in Laktong, gradually your thoughts, this sense of self, this self-basedness is released. And then you start having thoughts, emotions, subtle energy that is not distorted by this sense of self, by this entityness. And then this is what liberation or freedom in Buddha Dharma means. And this is a unique point in the world of Dharma, in the world of spirituality, in the world of meditation, that at some point you are liberated from the shackles of thought and emotion and subtle energy. It's no longer a problem, no longer an enemy, if you will. So, problem, solution, samsara, nirvana. And the reason why they speak of one taste or same taste in Mahamudra, the third stage of the four, is because you understand that, these thoughts and emotions and reactions and mental creativity and that associating, it's not a problem at all. Now I can see that. It's just thoughts, it's just feelings, it's just associations. But because the self, the entity, has been seen through, liberated, that sentient being in so many different forms, or you can say those many sentient beings from our mental and emotional activity have been liberated. That's one taste, same taste. And then as you advance, you come to that stage and you advance more in your practice, it becomes more and more expansive, is not the word, but more and more complete. This same taste, one taste. And then when you graduate one taste, same taste, it happens by graduating from both samsara and nirvana. Graduating from both problem and solution. Because solution is not, nirvana is not a state. It's not a platform where you land. Now I'm in nirvana. This is a solution to my problem. I've landed on it. No. That's the whole point of non-meditation, abhavana. It is not a state. It is not a state of being. It's not a state of meditation. That's the whole point. So, and this is actually a very important distinction. I often like to speak, when I speak of these things, I speak of three vehicles that Buddha Dharma has. There is the Theravada Hinayana vehicle, Mahayana, and then Tantrayana. So, small vehicle, then there is Sutric Mahayana and Tantric Mahayana. Sutric Mahayana and Tantric Mahayana. So I like to speak about these things. And in Hinayana, in Theravada, they have a different definition for nirvana. They think of nirvana as a state, as opposed to samsara. And the reason for this is because they don't have the full scope of the subtle body. In Amrita Mandala we speak of 13 bhumi models, bhumis, just like in Mahayana and Vajrayana. And the first 10 of those are in the causal body are karmic grounds, which makes them susceptible to samsaric activity, self-based activity. But in Hinayana, in Theravada, they only have 6 bhumis. They only have the subtle body inside the physical body. Though they have both. They have both meridian field in the body space as well as nadi system in the body space. But like you have read from our books and heard me talk so many times, there is more to the subtle body than the nadi system inside the skin, which is of course the aura that you can, behind me in this lovely thanga of Guru Padmasambhava, you can't see his whole aura painted, but his rainbows are not restricted by his physical form. The nadis continue outside the body, right? And just exactly the same way, our soul body, each one of us has auras. Even Theravadins have auras, but they don't cultivate it because their vehicle is restricted with the attainment of arhathood. Arahant means, I don't remember what the translation of it means, but because of this, because they only have 6 bhumis, is why they have a differing view of nirvana and nirodha, cessation. So they do view nirvana, liberation, freedom, as a state that you go into. But and they actually, the technical term for that is abiding nirvana, to abide in nirvana state. But in Mahayana and in Vajrayana, the definition of nirvana is different. It's called non-abiding nirvana. It is nirvana, but you don't abide in it, because it is not an it. It is not a state. It is not a platform that you land on and then, put your feet up and then just enjoy nirvana. It's not like that. So, and the reason for why it is not a state is because Mahayanis and Vajrayanis, like us, we cover the whole subtle body, the whole causal body, all 10 karmic bhumis. And when you do that, you automatically pop out from all these states. Suddenly all these states of nirvana, samsara, pop. So our practices are really designed to do this, to make this a living experience, living reality. At the moment, we haven't had, this year we haven't had any of our Sangha members finish their bhumi purification, but I think that the total number at the moment is 22 who have finished purification of the bhumis, causal body, and it's of course proof that our method works. All methods, by the way, I think should prove that they work in every generation. Every generation. And if there is something that doesn't work, people should start thinking, experimenting, like a scientific, simple scientific, put their practices and methods through a simple scientific study so that they can figure out what is the problem. Why aren't we realizing non-abiding nirvana? Why aren't we having awakening experiences, major shifts, and all that? It's actually interesting when we think of, there are so many traditions of Buddha Dharma, and of course other types of Dharma, Taoist, Hindu, and so on. But every now and then, like every couple of 100 years, there are these revitalizers of the doctrine. Revitalization of traditions is necessary. There is not a single tradition that remains the same and remains effective for long periods of time, like hundreds of years. Maybe the founder is excellent practitioner and becomes a living enlightened master, a Mahasiddha, but she or he might not have students who are as great practitioners, and that's why they don't get the same results. That could be one reason. But if this continues for 5 generations, 5 generations of students who become teachers and lineage holders in their time, that they are not that great practitioners, or because the previous generation wasn't that great of a practitioner and therefore don't have enough details in instructions. This is the reason why even our lineage can become diluted. But then what is different in our digital age is these recordings. This was never possible in time before. So if now it's 2024, so if somebody's watching this in 2224, in 200 years, hello, hopefully our instructions hopefully no one has edited this video. That's what they did to Jesus' teachings, that's what they do to everybody. Somebody thinks that, we need to modify we need to a little bit smoothen or make it better somehow, make it more accessible somehow. So, students start modifying the original teachings. This should never be done, never. I'll make sure that before I kick the bucket, before I fly on a ray of light to Pure Lands and leave no physical remains, I'll make sure that nobody touches my writings or my recordings. If that happens, I promise I will come and haunt. It's not a joke. I'm dead serious about this. If somebody touches my recordings or writings, I'll create some problems. Or at least put a wall of fiery concrete around these individuals. I'm serious. So, cessation, trekcha, emptiness, causal body, nadi system. So, One term that I mentioned is knowing awareness, which is Rigpa in Tibetan, Vidya in Sanskrit. Vidya simply means knowledge. Vidya. But in the context of teachings of great perfection, it means knowing awareness. The knowing aspect of basic awareness, knowing aspect of our Buddha nature. And we'll get to that when we start practicing in a moment. So the way how Vipassana, or Lak Thong like it's called in Tibetan, how it works well, it depends of the teacher really, what kind of Vipassana instructions teachers give. And I have given a few different types of Vipassana instructions. And I will remind you of these. So, we have basic instructions for relaxing the body, relaxing the eyes, relaxing the mouth. And when we relax the eyes, it stops the seeking mode. It also stops the two types of concentration, intention and attention, so that this zero-dimensional basic knowing can be discovered, or that it can discover itself, that discovery can happen. So that is always the first thing. The very first technique in Amrita Mandala for opening the first bhumi, the two-part formula, starts with this. In two-part formula there are two modes, and these two modes dance throughout the method, throughout the purification of bhumis and purification of meridians. Two modes. They need to be in balance. They need to be in balance. So, with this knowing awareness, through relaxing of the body, relaxing of the eyes, relaxing of mouth, this basic knowing, selfless knowing, it is also called selfless cognizance. Cognizance. So the process of Vipassana happens after one has established this basic knowing, has confidence in it, which only comes through practice, which only comes through sitting. Yogis sit. So the Vipassana Lak Thong happens in the following way after that has been established. So you're aware effortlessly, naturally. It's not doing. It's not a practice of concentration. And then you're also aware of your mind and energetics, as well as the physical body. And then there's a thought appearing. One thought leads to the next. And then it draws some emotion attached to that thought association. And then you have emotional experience. And of course, it is the negative emotions that are an issue. But what you are to do, how are you to practice Vipassana from this basic awareness, basic knowing? You simply let all and anything, any movements of the mind, to be included in your basic awareness. In other words, you let this basic knowing be discovered from these thoughts and emotions, energies. So, when your mind is resting in this basic knowing, find that same knowing quality, same knowing clarity from thoughts, from emotions, from reactions, from subtle energy. It is there. It might not be immediately apparent. And that's the illusion, like a veil of illusion. But nevertheless, it is there. And it only waits to be seen, be discovered. And when you see that basic clarity in movements of the mind, there is, it is the technical term in English is called insight. Seeing inside to these changes of the mind. And seeing thoughts as they are, without the self, without the I. Without that tightening, narrowing, stuffy energy that the I, the self, brings. So that's how it is integrated. Thoughts and emotions are, that's actually a good word, are integrated back, reintegrated to our original being. These fragments or fragments of self, false self, small self, samsaric self, are invited and reintegrated back to our original, pure, clear, sober, sane, effortless being. Just letting you know that, just like it should be when giving teachings like this, there started a thunderstorm here outside. So if it happens that our electricity goes out, then good luck for the rest of the evening. but then we'll continue in the next sessions. But just letting you know that there's a thunderstorm that started. So maybe I will give another version of Vipassana, which would be a bit more Mahayana or Theravada flavor. So when you have a thought or emotion, some mental activity, and you feel that, oh, that stings, that burns, that makes you feel small and limited, constricted, then you do the following. You look at that thought or emotion, look at it, observe it, find out what's the size, what's the shape, what's the form, what's the texture, what's the color of that impulse, and look into the heart, into the middle of that impulse. Look at the surface of it, look inside to it, put your awareness inside it, and to the center of it, very center of it. And then you can zoom back, zoom to the surface, zoom to the core, Zoom to the surface, a bit away from the surface. Study it. How is that sentient being, that samsaric being, that mental emotional state, how is it like? How is the sense of me-ness, I-ness in that thing? Zoom in, zoom out. Don't push it, don't pull it, don't try to solve it, don't try to liberate it. Just become aware of it and remain aware of it. And that will liberate that sense of self from it. So, those two types, more like a natural reintegration of mind and its energies, or a bit more analytical, actually a lot more analytical approach. And there's actually a third one that I have taught, which is noting practice. Noting practice is very useful, especially in the beginning. And what I mean by noting, this is, well, I've heard it being practiced in Theravada Vipassana tradition. Noting means that you make a mental categorization about the things that you experience. This can be very useful with emotions, for example, because many times Westerners are very traumatized and they have suppressed their emotions and they don't really understand their emotional side, so they don't know what they are experiencing. Here also noting can be very useful. So noting happens like this. So I'm sitting here, being aware, and then sooner or later there will be thoughts or there will be mental content. And then I simply label, put a note, put a tape with a word written on it, as if doing that. Put on a label. Thought arises. Thought association. Another thought association. Memory. So you might be seeing, you're thinking the thoughts and it leads to the next thought and you're simply labeling what is happening. You're kind of explaining to yourself how your mind works. And then there's a memory. You might be seeing, remembering something from a few hours ago or remembering something from 3 years ago, 10 years ago in your life. So you have like a whole internal audio-visual experience of something. And when you know it is a memory, you label it as memory. Memory usually leads to emotion. So you make a note, emotion. That emotion is like what? That is the emotion of anxiety. Anxiety. Turning to sadness. Turning to feeling lost. Feeling hopeless. Feeling anger. Emotion disappears. Thought association. Thinking. Remembering something. Thought association. And then you just keep labeling to yourself what is happening in your mind. This is called noting practice. So that is the third type of, well, you could say third application of Vipassana. But I think that is not that we need to understand what we mean with Vipassana. Mere noting is not Vipassana. Vipassana literally means like a thorough seeing or supreme seeing. So it means actually having insights, liberating the sense of self. But with noting practice, doesn't necessarily happen. So you're simply just labeling stuff, but it can be helpful when doing the first two types of Vipassana that I taught. Alright, so this is Trekcho, Samapatti practice, which, like I said, leads to cessation of the self, cessation of selfing. And then your mind, the causal body, your causal mind rests in zero, rests in clarity. Whether you have thoughts, emotions, subtle energy, thought associations or not. This is the experience when you perfect 10 bhumis. This is the mind of a Buddha, mind of a Mahasiddha. Mind rests in zero. Selfing completely ceased. I've given talks, and I think we even have Lion-Faced Guru podcast episodes. Well, we have the Mahasiddha interviews. But there is extensive material, Amrita Mandala materials about cessations and how cessations can be in the beginning of the path, in the middle of the path, and at the end of the path. So I'm not going to repeat all of that. And then the second modality of traditional Dzogchen, just like in Amrita Mandala, is the Tibetan term is Tögal. I probably completely remember this wrong, but there is a Sanskrit term for this, and I think it's Vyutpattikrama or something like this. Vyutpattikrama, and I have no idea what it means. but it means experientially, again. Well, there are two takes on this. Some ancient and modern Dzogchen masters say that you have to complete Trekche or emptiness practice before practicing Tögal. Some say that, well, you need advancement, maturity in Trekche, in emptiness, but it doesn't have to be complete to practice Tögal, to do light body or rainbow body practice. But Amrita Mandala is still a working hypothesis. We have these 22 people, I think, who have finished emptiness practice, and at the moment we are still waiting for the first light body to pop up. So in that sense it's a working hypothesis. But the last couple of years when I've thought about this, because for a long time we only had what we now call the path of wisdom and clarity, the emptiness path, wisdom path. So we didn't have an option, we didn't have an alternative for trauma healing and light body practices. But this question has arisen the past couple of years when I have given the practices of the path of healing and light. So people have asked, well, should I finish the wisdom path like people before, or should I practice both at the same time, or could I perhaps focus on path of healing and light? Well, it's up to everybody. As long as you understand how the paths work and what the practices are, you can choose either, or you can perhaps even do both paths. But I will say this. If one has very traumatic background, if one has developmental trauma, like myself, and I was just thinking to myself that, well, one might not know that whether you have traumatic past or not. You might not know if you have developmental trauma. Well, in that case, often people who are very traumatized say that I don't remember much of my childhood. If that thought is something that you have thought regularly over many years in your life, you probably have a pretty serious trauma. And the thing is that if you try to heal trauma without having that support of clarity of your mind, it might be too difficult. Because the thing is that trauma healing practices like we have in Amrita Mandala are very demanding. They really dig out the roots of these psychic injuries. So then before deciding, before deciding on some books related to trauma so that you have a better understanding what trauma means. So I'm kind of giving this as like a heads up that, when we start healing traumas, it means that we expose the trauma. And if it is something very dramatic, you will relive the trauma. You will relive it many times in your practice. But if it overwhelms you, it will only, it keeps shocking you. So this is obviously not how healing. Traumas can be so ingrained and so strong that some emotional energies like anger that has been suppressed can be for decades. It can really be really be overwhelming. So if you don't have that clarity, it might just eat you up, and there will be zero healing from that. So this is the reason why I think after these couple of years of contemplation that in that case definitely it's better to finish purification and perfection of bhumis first. And this is how, like I said, this is how it's been taught by Dzogchen masters. First emptiness, first trekcho, which means literally cutting through, and then tagal, then shifting one's, then focusing on the aliveness aspect of basic awareness. And this relates to our meridians. It's a very bodily experience. So the difference, I've been asked so many times. Last week, a Dharma friend from Thailand asked me this question, about the differences between Trekcha and Tagal, emptiness practice and then light body practice. So the difference of the two is very simple. In the first one, what you're practicing is clarity in stillness, mind, in movements of the mind. In the second stage, in Tagal, you're no longer, again, I agree with the instruction like many ancient Dzogchen masters who say that first finish Trekcha complete it, and then focus on Tagal. So I'm saying this from the perspective that you have already finished Trekcha. So the whole emptiness thing, all 10 bhumis are already out of the picture. This is about Buddha nature as God, the session. So instead of needing to focus on clarity or selflessness or emptiness of mental and emotional things, because that is already out of the system, you shift focus. So you're no longer focusing on the clarity of diamond, figuratively speaking, but the rainbow-like emanation of energy that is already in you. In common terms, you focus on aliveness. This is simply the difference between Trekcha and Tagal. And traditionally in Tagal, there are like a handful of yoga postures, yoga positions that you put your body in. There is the cross-legged posture, meditation posture, but then like yoga posture-like things. And there are different gazes, different positions of the eyes. But most importantly, there is engaging eyes and the heart in the following way. So when you are meditating eyes open, it's a good description if I say that you're drinking light with your heart through the eyes. Light is already arriving in the eyes. When you look at the room, when you look outside, the image from the room, from the space, from the object, it's already arriving to the eyes. This means that the light is already arriving in the eyes. And then you simply become aware of the fact that the light is going through the eyes into the heart. This is, it's probably in YouTube. It's an instruction that I received from Dzogchen Lingpa some number of years ago. But this is the main point. Whether you are upwards or gazing horizontally forward or gazing downwards or gazing sideways, whether you have eyes open or half closed or fully closed, whether you are sitting on a chair or cross-legged in lotus posture or in one of those Dzogchen postures, drinking the light with the heart through the eyes is the main traditional Dzogchen technique. Okay? But then there are... So what happens when we drink the light through the eye, with the heart through the eyes? What happens is that because, well, there are... I wonder whether to give like a... what to say and what to leave out about the nature of channels. Well, in Dzogchen tradition, there is special emphasis on these crystal channels of the subtle body that go from the two eyes through the head to the heart. But actually, these crystal channels or diamond channels are everywhere in the body. Everywhere. And here you might be, if you have heard me talk about the subtle body, you already know what I'm talking about. But this diamond aspect, this crystal aspect of channels is actually in all nadis. It's actually in all meridians. And it also touches the physical cells. So to drink light with the heart through the eyes, it's only like a very basic practice. Very basic. But I don't usually teach, well, I just taught, but I don't usually emphasize this technique. How I like to teach Tagal instead is recognizing aliveness of basic awareness with your whole body. If you already have a solid recognition of basic awareness, basic knowing, then this is very easy to do. Shifting from clarity to aliveness, from clarity to kindness, from clarity to love, from clarity of a diamond, figuratively speaking, to rainbows radiating from the diamond. The experience, whether you are, what happens, I'll just add one thing. So, what happens when you drink light with the heart through the eyes is that your subtle body, those diamond channels, crystal channels, start becoming active. They kind of start waking up. So there is a gradual familiarization through these internal sensations. Gradual familiarization. So even if you start with the eyes and heart technique, sooner or later you will be sitting in it with your whole body and with your whole subtle body, both subtle bodies. So the reason why I like to emphasize this whole body recognition is because this you will get there anyway, sooner or later. In traditional Dzogchen, the so-called 4 visions are discussed. You know, because traditional Dzogchen is related to eyes so much, is why there is discussion of these visions, seeing different things that are already in us. But this is actually, these Dzogchen visions are seeing so-called tigles, these spheres that have rainbow around them, like a rainbow seen from space. They are circular rainbows if we look at them from above. So, like seeing small rainbows, spheres of rainbows called tigles, seeing these bright chains, a bit like worms that are radiant with diamond clarity and rainbows. This is just a very basic type of visions. But these develop into seeing Buddhas, enlightened archetypes inside these tigles, develops into seeing many tigles at once, seeing vajras, vajra symbol, dorje symbol, symbols, seeing mandalas, stupas, Buddha figures I already mentioned. So it starts with something very simple, like seeing tigles, but then you see it in more detail when you see mandalas. So this is if you ever wondered about yantras or mandalas that are everywhere in tantric systems, if you ever wondered, where do vajras and mandalas come from, they come from seeing our own subtle bodies in great detail. But Dzogchen visions are not necessarily about seeing particular visual visions. They can be, if you're practicing having 4 visions through Tögal, through the body, it is simply the gradual familiarization with your own pure meridian system, also known as light body or rainbow body. And you might not have anything visual connected to it. So the 4 visions, this is a common people sometimes who are interested in Dzogchen meditation, they want to have these 4 visions because, if you have first and second and third and fourth vision, it means that it is something important, knowing oneself as a Buddha. But the thing is that it is just only about our Buddha nature and stages of familiarization with it. We are all Buddhas in the center of mandalas. That experience is the vision. That each one of us is a fully enlightened being in center of our own mandalas. Mandala means sphere of influence, like Amrita mandala. Sphere of influence. What is the meaning of sphere? It means you and your karmic connections in this life and from all previous lives. That is your mandala. It's all in your subtle body. But when your subtle body awakens, which means when all of the channels and energies become 100% active and running, then you perceive your mandala. You perceive yourself as a fully enlightened, fully awakened being, as a Buddha, and that there is this mandala that you're in the middle of, and that it actually extends infinitely. Because we have tens of thousands of nadi channels, and they travel through the edge of the aura outwards, and they connect with those beings and places that we have connection with from this life and past lives. If we have been in touch with 1,000 people in this life, that's already 1,000 connections. If we have lived 5,000 lives, it's many, many, many connections. And then all those individuals have their connections. So it's this vast web, vast network of connections. That is your mandala. I have mine, you have yours, everybody has theirs. And simply living in that experience at all times is the fourth Dzogchen vision, which is the vision of adepts and master yogis who have attained rainbow body or light body. It's that simple. We are only talking about our body minds being completely open and active. And I would like to do something very how is it? Very inordinary, is that the word? Very something a bit unusual. Well, I already have actually in this video, because like Tögal practices are never spoken in public. But I speak because, well, Dzogchen Lingpa, who taught me about drinking light with the heart through the eyes, he didn't put any restrictions or requirements for me. So I can openly speak about these things. And also none of my gurus has. And the reason for that is because people should know these things. Like His Holiness the Dalai Lama has said that the time of secrecy is over. Cannot be as secretive as it has been, because the world is on fire and people are in need for instructions. So I'm doing my share and sharing openly. But something completely unorthodox that I want to do is to kind of go to the topic of last week, where I gave 3 hours of teachings of Buddha nature, or Tathagata Garbha, as God. So I want to tie that also to this session. So in my experience, when we meditate on this pure nature of ours, that is full of light, completely radiant, and radiating pure positive energy, not constricted, not distorted, not branded with the sense of self, but it's just openly radiating pure energy, like light. Light of a lamp, light of a candle, light of the sun, even light reflected by the moon. just radiating, effortlessly, naturally. To use a bit unorthodox term for this is that's divinity. That's our God likeness. Likeness with God. And I don't, again, yesterday I made it very clear that I'm not talking about the God, how God is defined in Christianity as this omniscient a ruler or being who condemns and judges people, who is neurotic about number of things, like angry old men can be. So I'm not talking about that kind of God of Christians or in Christianity, but I'm talking about this inner purity, which is our God likeness, which is Buddha nature, which is Tathagata Garbha. So likeness with God, sameness with God, if we think in terms of subtle bodies, body-mind, it means openness, 100%, activated, 100%, energies flowing completely unimpeded, unobstructed. So, God likeness, divinity means purity. The same exact purity that is discussed in esoteric teachings, cultivated in esoteric practices, such as Dzogchen. And interestingly, it is a historical fact that many ascetics and practitioners of contemplative Christianity have attained both small rainbow body, what is known in Tibetan system as small rainbow body, or even full rainbow body, where the physical body completely disappears at death. I don't have at all enough details about this, but because the Christian Orthodox tradition is even more secretive than Tibetan, but I only have the few bits of information which says that especially in Orthodox Christian countries, there has been many monks in modern times and in ancient times whose bodies shrank and disappeared. Why? How is that possible? People also ask that question. How is it possible for Christians to attain the same as Dzogchen practitioners? Because of this principle. if the principles, underlying principles, meaning the kayas, the Buddha bodies, are correctly cultivated and exercised, the result is the same. And that's why. Even if there can be different views, the practices will still make it happen. So resting in diamond-like clarity, as well as recognizing the rainbow, dance of rainbows. Dance of rainbows, which is figuratively saying that there is this wonderful, playful aliveness inside the body and outside the body in the aura. Wonderful playfulness. It is not dull at all, not serious at all. We have been driving, we took a mini holiday with Rani the past couple of days, and we saw these baby goats in the field. Baby goats. Have you seen those jumping? You know, that kind of playfulness. Silliness, goofiness, joyfulness. Samsaric beings lose that, isn't it? But it is there. If you are at home practicing and you might not, these clarity of the diamond and rainbows radiating from the diamond may not be that clearly experienced, then you are welcome to apply the rainbow jewel visualization from Rainbow Body Yoga. You can visualize it for 1 or 2 seconds, 10 seconds, 20 seconds, half a minute, as long as it takes to ignite your Buddha bodies. And then keep applying the visualization whenever it's needed. But on the other hand, in this session you don't need to do the visualization. I was just mentioning that for your home practice. you can completely relax into it. It doesn't need to be held or supported. The more you relax your physical tissues and your mind, your energies into it, the better. Remember to keep your eyes and mouth relaxed. That's a tip for beginners. So when you have 11 boomies, the whole stack of boomies open, then movements of the eyes are no longer a problem. But until then, can be useful and helpful. Of course, in the beginning of Ati Yoga, from the perspective of aliveness or Tagal, it takes time, it takes practice sessions to gain certainty what recognition is correct, what kind of experience is correct recognition. But then, I already mentioned several times that with the opening of 11th bhumi, it becomes very easy. It's this knowing, awareness becomes one's default mode. And this can happen very quickly in practice. There have been practitioners in the Sangha who got there in a couple of months of practice. But I think that on average it takes maybe a year or two to open all bhumis. But that's very, very quick. Very fast. But what then? When you get to that point, then you can really relax into it. You can really rest into it. Kind of melt into it. Like a sugar cube melts in a cup of tea or coffee, like that. And what does this mean? With Tagal, we are speaking of returning, reintegrating the bodily system of meridians, like we call it, returning the astral body fully back into our basic nature. Those, how do you say, like removed or fragmented or dissociated bits, we are reintegrating them back. And after you have confidence that you are recognizing the correct experience, then just relax into it. It becomes so enjoyable. It becomes like the most fulfilling and relaxing massage of your tissues. And that's also where the traumas dissolve. Also, negative emotions that are stuck in the meridians, some of them stuck in the physical tissues, dissolve. So let them reintegrate themselves. A practice tip, if you are still in the beginning of the practice, so you haven't yet opened Mahasiddha Bhumis, or even if you have, if you are having some energies that are taking over and it's clouding your experience of the basic state, Buddha nature, then dynamic concentration. In the basic material of Rainbow Body Yoga, there are the syllables Hung Pet to be dynamically shouted perhaps 3, 4, 5 times, and then you do that every few minutes. And what happens there when using hung pet or other syllables is that it creates, makes the self-based energies and energies of negative emotion and trauma dissipate or subside from large part of your subtle body. It creates a whole of types, which consequentially makes recognition of the basic state take place. And this is an immense gift, dynamic concentration that we have in Amrita Mandala. Whether you shout syllables, if you shout hung pets 4 times, for example, it means 8 shouts. Hung pet, hung pet, hung pet, hung pet. So, but one thing, again, we need to speak of quality of practice. It is not that important how many times you shout, whether it's 8 times or 80 times. What is most important is that this utter clarity and utter softness is recognized. How do you know if you have utter clarity and utter softness? Through practice, through finding out for yourself, through experimentation, through using the tools. I will do a demonstration round of hung pet shouts and then we will do it together. So just to give you an idea how it sounds, how it should be done, how the body should be used. So it is not aggressive shouting like I've seen some lamas of Dzogchen tradition shout very angrily with their brows furrowed with a very angry face. This is not correct. It should be very relaxed but sharp, like punches. I often mention boxers, like professional boxers. Even when they punch hard, they are relaxed inside it. It's like a momentarily tensing. I used to box back in the day, so I like that analogy. But I'll show you. And not too quickly, not shouting too quickly. So you should have unhurriedness of breathing. Okay. Hung pet, 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 hung pet. And after you stop shouting, relax. Because when you use your muscles of the body to produce the sound, it obviously tensions, makes some muscles flex. So that's why you relax after. And when you relax, then you can experience what I meant with it creates a whole. Samsaric mind stuff subsides. So let's do a set of hung pets together. Let's begin. Hung pet, 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 hung pet. Relax. Tissues completely limp. Doesn't matter if you're sitting eyes closed or open, both are okay. Hung syllable. It's is often spoken as the wrathful syllable, the root syllable of Guru Rinpoche. But to be more exact, the meaning of that syllable is it covers bhumis 1 through 10. And pet cracks the coconut, cracks what hung defines, bhumis 1 through 10. So it is, hung pet is, because of the syllable hung, it's related to causal body more, nadis more than meridians. Having said that, even because the physical tissues and muscles are activated with each shout, because there is like a brief muscle flexing repeatedly, it also touches on physical tissues and meridians. But if we wanted to make this more specific to meridians, astral body, then we would replace hung with om, which is the root syllable of pure meridian system. So cracking the coconut that om covers, meaning the meridian system. So let's do another set with om pet. Om pet, 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 om pet. Relax. Just rest in it. Relax into it. Don't try to grasp it. Don't try to hold it. If you try to do that, it's already the seeking mode activated. And like I often say, in the beginning of one's practice, it's better to shout too much than too little. I think that if we speak of we in the two sets a moment ago, we maybe did something like, I didn't count, but maybe 40, 50 shouts per set. Something like that. If you do a few hundred, maybe 300, 400, 500 a day in the beginning, split into short sessions throughout the day, you will do yourself a big favor in the beginning of the path, because you will be constantly punching a hole through your samsaric systems, thus placing yourself in this Buddha nature of yours, divine nature of yours. And that's of course the whole point. We've been sitting here, I realize, for more than 2 hours. So stay with your experience and lie down for a while. So we have a few minutes left. And briefly, let's say, express gratitude to Guru Padmasambhava and Guru Ma Yeshe Dzogchen. After Guru Rinpoche and Yeshe Ma, also expressing total gratitude to another Dzogchen master, Vimala Mitra. After Vimala Mitra, gratitude to Longchenpa, Jigmelingpa, and Dujomlingpa. I also want to express gratitude to more modern masters, Chatral Rinpoche and his whole Longchen Ningtig lineage reaching back to Jigme Lingpa, including Kempo Nawang Palzang, Patrul Rinpoche, and so on. Also prostrations to Dilgo Khyentse Rinpoche, and the reason why I express this gratitude to Dilgo Khyentse and Chatral Rinpoche and his Longchen Ningtig lineage is because these masters, each one of them, have had significant roles in Amrita Mandala work and in my personal practice over many years. And then prostrations and gratitude of our hearts to Guru Padmasambhava's gurus, Sri Simha, Manjusri Mitra, and Garab Dorje. Through recognizing ourselves as Buddhas, living Buddhas, through the blessings of these many gurus, Mahasiddhas, Lamas, Rinpoches, taking refuge in the five jewels. For the liberation of all beings. And for the happiness of all beings. May all beings get benefits like we do from these teachings, from these practices, from these instructions, and may all beings get the merit that will help them to ripen their karma and meet the Dharma of freedom and liberation and lasting happiness. as long as we are yet to attain Mahasiddhahood, Buddhahood, twofold enlightenment of wisdom and light body, we are taking bodhisattva vows. Vows to liberate all beings, to put an end to our delusion, to practice the Dharma that liberates, and vow to attain great perfection. Very good, palm to palm. And there. So, the title I had for this session was Basics of Dzogchen. But we covered everything. But that's the thing with Dzogchen. It's not really, even though we speak of basics of Dzogchen, basics of Mahasandhi teachings, Great Perfection teachings, this is what we need to talk about. We need to have an understanding what the whole thing is. So even though we got all the way to light body and went through everything, all these details that we went through, this is what we need to know, to have like a solid understanding of what we're doing. So this evening was the first of 4 this week that we have training. Tomorrow on Friday evening we have the May weekend retreat starting, 2 hours tomorrow evening from 8 p.m. local time. So we'll take it from here. How many of you are joining this weekend? Okay. Yes. So we'll see what kind of trouble we get into from tomorrow. Anybody has any questions? There was something I was meaning to say, but already slipped my mind. We have few minutes, so if you have anything you would like to ask, go ahead. The one thing that I remember to mention is, so we are working with, of course, our tissues, but something that is really important with, and this is actually an interesting point, because it's not, it's a very secretive tradition, Dzogchen tradition, and practices are only taught in courses and seminars, and but nevertheless, there are 4 or 5 postures, like yoga posture type postures, that you practice at the yoga. So postures, I'm not gonna say what those postures are. I've also learned them, but I have never practiced them in that traditional way. But I would just want to make a point that rainbow body practice, light body practice, meridian purification, it's very physical. And this is something that I've said in the Sangha, that you need to not only practice sitting in meditation, non-meditation at the yoga, but you need to really stretch and exercise your body as well. And the reason for that is that there is so much stuff in the meridians, in the cells, that if you don't, you will very easily get overwhelmed by and get stuck with practice, because you have to keep it flowing, moving energy. You have to kind of kick it. So that's why I've said that do exercise and stretch, practice yoga. Well, we have Amrita Asana yoga in Amrita Mandala, which is very specific type of exercise. On what I thought for this weekend was to practice Amrita Asana, among other things. But it's an interesting point when we speak of meridian purification / Dzogchen Tagal practice, which some of the traditional postures are very, how should I say, the postures are very advanced. You know, full lotus is piece of cake compared to one of these postures. So do the math. What are those postures for? What are they about? They are about keeping the meridian system and cells without getting stuck. So, not really forcing the energy to move, but making it move and keeping it moving. That's what I wanted to say.